Hi, I'm Wendy Welsh from Wendy's Quilts and More, and I'm here today to talk about hanging sleeves. A good hanging sleeve is really important if you're going to enter your quilt into a show, but it's also useful if you want to hang quilts in your home. Hanging sleeves allow your quilt to hang straight and look its very best. The best type of hanging sleeve is the 4-inch hanging sleeve. People sometimes ask, what does 4 inches refer to? Is that the width to cut it or the finished size? It's the finished size, 4 inches, because a deep hanging sleeve allows plenty of room for the rod or stick to go through. For a finished size of 4 inches, we need to cut at 8.5 deep. Cut 8.5 deep. So I'm going to show you how I make my hanging sleeves. I learnt this method from Jackie Gearing's blog, Tall Grass Prairie Studio, in her blog post dated 4th of February 2012. So firstly, I completely finish my quilt. The binding needs to be sewn down before you can make the hanging sleeve, like this. I measure across the back from the binding to the binding, like this. Now that's 36 inches to be inside the binding, and I add an inch to that to make it 37 to allow for a 1/2 inch hem on each end. I then cut my hanging sleeve 8.5 inches deep by the length that I've just calculated. So for this little quilt, it would be 37 inches by 8.5 deep. Of course, sometimes you'll have to join two pieces of fabric together to get the sleeve long enough. If your quilt's over 80 inches or it's quite heavy, it's good to allow for an extra support hook in the center of your quilt. In this case, you make 2 finished hanging sleeves and you leave a space in the middle when you sew them on. So here, this hook would help support the weight of the quilt when it's hanging in a show or on your wall at home. And this only works if you leave a gap between your sleeves. Each one of these is finished with a nice tidy hem, but there's a gap of about 1 inch between the 2 hanging sleeves. So, let's start making a sleeve. First of all, once I've cut the fabric the right size, I turn in once and twice and sew down there just like I would if I was hemming a skirt. The other end's already done, pressed, looks neat and tidy. Then when both ends are hemmed, I double check that it's the right width for my quilt. Lie it on here, pretend it's longer and that it still remains inside of the binding. I put it about there. Then I'd press the wrong sides together, so it's like this. Look like that. I'd press here, down the middle. Then I'd open that up and I'd press that one in and I'd press along this line and I'd press along this line. Next, I'm going to pin and I'm going to sew my wrong sides together. Very unusual for quilters, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to sew along here. Sew the wrong sides together. Then very carefully, you're going to press that seam open. Here's one here. Pressing open while maintaining these crease folds here. You can see we're forming the D shape. Or maybe it's that way for you. straight on this side with a curve out this side. If you're going to have trouble not ironing out those creases, you can pin them first like this and then press this seam open. This is the back and it's going to rest against the quilt. If you're not going to put this on the quilt, pin it on the quilt right now, I would put these pins in to maintain these pressing lines. Otherwise, when you come back in 3 days or a week, they'll have disappeared and you'll have this floppy piece of sleeve and you won't be quite sure where to attach it. So, when it comes time to put it on the quilt, just like this one here, I put it quite close to the binding, not totally touching the binding. You need to attach it to the quilt, not the binding, but quite near the top. You've got to remember that with this extra fabric on the outside here, when the stick goes in, it's going to move up and you don't want that to show when it's hanging on the wall or in the show. You can't have so much spare fabric that it comes above the binding, but the whole idea of the top being bigger than the back is that there is spare room in there to hold the stick and not distort the quilt. So if I hold this one, holding by the stick, you can see that it's nice and straight and you would not be able to tell from the front that there's a rod in behind there. So I pin that on, pretend this was my top. I pin along here and along here and hand sew that on, being very careful that my stitches don't go through to the front of the quilt. So now you have a hanging sleeve and your quilt's all ready to hang beautifully in your home or in a show. The major thing to remember is cut the fabric 8.5 inches deep. Thank you. Bye.